There we go. So once again, how to get the most out of TFS4JIRA tips and tricks. First of all, a short introduction. We are Spartez. We are an Atlassian Gold partner and Marketplace Gold top vendor. Our products are currently being used by over 3,000 customers globally, and we are very much known for what is often referred to as our legendary support. You're free to look it up on any of the reviews that we have on the Marketplace. They all mention that we are very responsive, we are very timely and helpful. So this should very much encourage you, I hope, to try our products.
The current presentation will try to focus on 4 areas. First of them being types of deployment. Second one, mapping. Third one will be good to know things. And the fourth one will be please avoid, or I don't know, like, I'm looking for better wording, like be cautious around these areas. Okay, so types of deployment. First of all, okay, before I even start, well, I already started, but before I move further, I would like to mention one thing. We are waiting for you, for your feedback. So if you have questions, you have a chat, which you can always use, and we will be listening to it. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact us via chat and ask the questions. That's why we're here for. Yeah, that's why this is the idea of it. It's live and not on YouTube video. So Firebird, what Firebird is? Firebird is a type of database, which is SQL database, which we've added support from version, I think, 6.1, I believe, 6.1. It has to be out there if you're deploying on Azure Web App, but it can also be connected to your TFS4JIRA instance if you're having it on site. What are the benefits of using it? Easier access if you're having a separate instance of Firebird. Why? Because you can script it. You can just use SQL scripts to access what's inside of it. And based on this, you can either update profiles, you can change them, you can update mappings, whatever you wish. Possibility of load balance in really big instances. So what does it mean? If you're, for example, let's say, synchronizing check-ins or would like to have a visibility of check-ins in Jira from TFS side, perfect option for you to use is the Firebird. Why? Because then you have full control over the database. It's full-blown, Firebird is full-blown database. And the SQL CE, which we are using right now, might have some problems. Later on, we are actually planning to migrate fully to Firebase and use it as a default option, but right now it might need some changing and tweaking. If you'd like to know how to do it, you can refer to our documentation and check how it is deployed on the cloud. Third thing is that it lifts off a limit of 4 gigabytes. Currently, if you're using regular standard edition, you are limited to 4 gigabytes in terms of the config SDF file. The config SDF file being the standard database, which is there right now. And also, it allows you backups, proper backups. There can be backups right now done, and I will mention them later in disaster recovery. But if you're having a database and Firebird, you have more control of what you can do. And now this is disaster recovery. As mentioned before, use Firebird. That's one of the best solutions out there right now. And if you have an option for this, you can even have a separate, completely separate, I don't know, Docker machine, Docker instance, yeah? Or separate machine completely dedicated just for the Firebird database. But if you do not have this option or you would like to avoid it, I don't know, you can always backup config SDF file. The config SDF file is the core and the heart of the whole process. So config SDF file, that's our database. It's a file database at the moment. And if you back it up, you have an option always to restore it later on. If you're talking about backing up, it's always worth noting that the web config file, which is in the TFS4JIRA root directory, it's storing all the connections and all the settings for proxies, and all the general settings. For example, if you're changing .NET framework, which is, or if you have a problem with TLSs, they all are stored in web config file. So sometimes if you inherit after someone else web config file or TFS4JIRA instance, it's always worth noting that this file is crucial for proper deployment. Next one. Okay, multiple users. With the Azure web app, there is a one requirement of having this file users XML. So you can replace currently used login to Windows with users XML file, which is simple format here. Of course, I highly suggest not using admin, but aside of that, all this is quite simple. You can check up our documentation on Cloud Solution to dig further, deeper into the subject, how to set it up. But then you have more control over who logs in. And many times we've been asked, why do I need to give Windows credentials to this person? I would not like to give it. So you can limit it by using the user's XML file. Oh, and the custom fields. Whenever you're setting up any profile, currently, you have to set up custom fields in Jira and in TFS. What's the purpose of the custom fields on the creation of a profile? They are used to store synchronized issue key or work item ID. So let's say we have an issue called demo2, and it's synchronized with work item with ID 5. So then issue with Jira issue demo2 has custom field 5, and demo and work item with ID 5 has its custom field with a string demo2. Why this is important? If you're using custom fields and not history on TFS side, you have a full control over the process. At any given moment, you can unlink those two artifacts, issue from Jira and work item from TFS, by just clearing up those custom fields. And also, you can link artificially one issue to another work item. Like here, you have really control over the flow of what's going on. So now mappings. Okay, I've mentioned, I try to make it as small as possible, but I had to mention at least once. Always use a separate user for connecting to Jira TFS. What do I mean? Like in a perfect world, you would have a user called TFS4JIRA synchronizer. And why do you need it? Because then in the history, whenever you're checking who has performed this change, you can see that it wasn't some admin or another person that is logged into TFS4JIRA, but it is this the user that is used to log in as TFS4JIRA. So we can track all the changes that were done by synchronizer. And if it's doable, make Jira and TFS workflows as lenient as possible. If it's possible, please try using all-to-all transitions. You can work around it, but if you would like to have a step-by-step workflow, Jira actually supports this. I think like this. Jira promotes this idea of having a workflow being step-by-step, one after another. And you can avoid it. I will mention it later on. But out of the box, we always suggest for the user that is using TFS4JIRA, having an option to map all to all. And now, crucial, one of the things that can heavily impact the performance of the whole process. You do not have to map all issue types. Just map those issue types that are crucial for you. If you'd like to map tasks, then map tasks. You don't have to map everything else. Just map tasks, bug, or end user story. Those, if you need them. Yeah? If you need those free, use only those free. Please do not use default mapping for issue types. Why? We have introduced filters we are just asking for the feature for the issue types and work items that are mapped. If some issue type is not mapped, we are actively omitting it in the synchronization process. We are just asking for those issue types that are mapped. And I can see that I saw once that the performance boosted 10 times because we were asking for issue types that were later on not mapped, and it doesn't make sense. So if you can, please do not use default mapping. Another thing worth mentioning are filters. Many times, I'm working as a word many times. I was working on support for 2 years of TFS4JIRA. So I saw a few cases already, and most of the times the weirdest scenario there could be can be resolved by creative using of filters. Please try going there and checking what's possible and what's not. Do keep in mind that filters are always per profile. So if you set up a profile, use the filters will be set up for the profile. Though keep in mind that if you can, avoid filtering issue types. Issue types are, as mentioned before, are covered in the previous step. They are powerful and adaptable, but they have one downside. They do not improve performance. So if you filter something out, it will still be fetched just later on during fetching, after fetching in issue or work item, it will be just omitted. But still it will be fetched, so the performance will not be improved. We're working on this, on improving this functionality, and maybe even reworking it better, but currently that's the limitation. Restarting machine. Sometimes we've seen in the past a situation when restarting machine, because of like disaster, I don't know, earthquake or volcano explosion, sometimes machine is being restarted. And the TFS4JIRA currently is not starting automatically. What is worth noting is to have some sort of mechanism that will ping any script. Any script will do, that will just ping the TFS4JIRA URL and try to log in. And that should wake it up. That should wake it up. Just, I don't know, create a task on the beginning, which will invoke the request, invoke web request, and wake up TFS4JIRA. That's something really worth having, and it can save you a lot of time debugging and figure out what's going on. Good things to know. Right now, at a given moment, there are 3 sync modes. If you're migrating from one to another, we've seen a few times questions how it particularly works. So we like the first one, creating only new one. How it's checked and what's the purpose of it. The first mode creates only new issues out of work items, and how it's checked. So whenever we have, let's say we're migrating from TFS to Jira. Scenario, we're having work item on TFS side, and this work item should have a custom field filled in. If the custom field is filled by some issue key or any string whatsoever, we decide, okay, this is already synchronized, this work item is synchronized, okay, filter it out. And we check all the work items until we find a work item that has not been yet synchronized, which means does not have a custom field filled in. And then we synchronize. I have to excuse it for a moment. Seriously, as I said, I got the flu. There you go. Second option, updating counterparts, is what we do in this mode. We are checking all the work items, and regardless if the custom field is filled in or not, we try to synchronize. But we are behaving differently in 2 situations. If the issue has not been synchronized, we are creating a new one. But if the custom field in work item is already filled in, we try to fetch first the issue, and based on the work item, update all the fields in the Jira issue. The third option is kind of risky, but it can help you out if something messes up with the whole synchronization process, or someone changed something on your Jira project. It's completely recreating the whole project. How it works? It checks all the work items, finds linked issues, and deletes them. Tribal knowledge says that work issues should not be deleted. That's why I said, if you can, please try avoiding it. You can always try unlinking them. That's why we suggest unlinking issues and trying from scratch. Oh, and good thing to know is limiting visibility. As mentioned before, we suggest having lenient workflow from all to all, from all statuses to all statuses. And we've been asked in the past few times, give an option to limit it. So there is a workaround for it, and we have workflow conditions to thank for this. How this is done? You create a separate group in which resides only this particular user that is used to synchronize between issue trackers. That's why I mentioned a separate completing user. Then in a workflow condition, from this all to particular status, you give it a condition to show only to those that are in a group. Thanks to this, everyone else who's visiting Jira and would like to perform a transition on an issue, he's seeing only regular transitions that are out there. But if TFS4JIRA comes in, he sees all possible statuses, so he can always perform this transition. And thanks to this, like everything is in a good place. So you still have this limitation of a workflow and issues going through the statuses, but TFS4JIRA can perform these transitions without breaking anything on the way. And there is also avoidance list, as everywhere. Checkings. If you're using checkings or would like to have visibility of checkings, checkings work differently. Of course, you know that probably. Checkings work a bit differently than Git commits. If you in the check-in you have a message, this message later on can be altered for whatever reasons. Unfortunately, currently, for performance reasons, TFS4JIRA is holding checkings and metadata about checkings, only metadata, not the actual checkings on the information about the checkings, only the metadata of checkings in its own internal database. And in this metadata, of course, there is a check-in message. If you edit the check-in message in TFS, this information will not be propagated. We fetch it just once from the TFS side, and that's it. And that's it. So if you later on edit it, you'll have to perform rescan from the Jira UI. So if you can, please try avoiding it and try avoiding rescanning issues. This has a performance impact. And ideally, if I would like to have another message, make another check. Last thing, but not least, is using history to store issue key. Whenever I was debugging something and I saw that there was a history used, I saw problems. History is in storing issue key in the history on TFS side. It's easy to set up, but later on, if you would like to unlink those issues, you're in trouble. Why? Let's say you have 100 work items which you would like to unlink. For example, why you would like to unlink? Okay, so you had a batch of 100 work items synchronized with one Jira instance. Later on, this Jira instance is gone away, but you would like to synchronize still those work items with another Jira instance. But they are linked with them. So you need to clear all of them at once. If you're having custom field, bulk edit is easy. You can just bulk edit all of them, clear the custom field, and then those work items are treated as completely new. If you're having a comment, if you're using a history, then we can have a problem. There is a way to avoid it. You have to use a spell, magic spell, and comment it with TFS4JIRA #none. Then TFS4JIRA starts from scratch, and he doesn't treat this work item as linked anymore. And like from good tips, I think that's it. So are there any questions up to this point? Because right now we can go delve deeper into the problem. If you have something to say, speak out then.
Yeah. I don't think there are any questions coming up, so maybe I can buy us some time. You know, we were doing this presentation earlier on to a different group, and then there was a question about our future plans. This was a topic that we have set up a different webinar for, but if you would also like to see what's coming up, just a short sneak peek, I think Paweł can show you the roadmap, and then in the meantime, maybe you can think about what you would like to ask us if there's anything.
I think I can show a roadmap,
yeah.
Sneak peek. Yeah, sneak peek of a roadmap I can show. Well, we have a roadmap right now planned, but I had to, for a second, stop sharing because then I would go to my other place. Okay, share. I hope this is this one. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that's our roadmap, current roadmap. What's coming up next? We are planning to focus on empower mappings. They will revolve about sprints, users, read-only fields, and okay, reworking default mappings means that we're going to try to address a problem that whenever you are having a profile, new mapping is being created. The default ones are not always working perfectly as one would imagine. We're going to replace the library, which is used to connect to TFS. Currently, the library for TFS is still using SOAP API, which is far from perfect. We are completely rebuilding from scratch and using REST API. TFS 2019 is going to have it anyway, so why not do it? Firebase, as I said before, okay, what's IDS in consideration? That's something we're heavily thinking on. Those things are like next one, but afterwards, we're still open for feedback, and maybe you have something to say, and we're always willing to hear you. So Firebase as a default option, reusability part of the profiles. For example, I set up a few profiles in my life, and I know I hate setting up each single time a new connection. I have to type the same username, the same password, everything the same. Why? I would love to use it again over and over and over and over. Users mapping, also I hate mapping. I was doing my mapping when we are using it on our own instance, TFS4JIRA, and whenever I had to went to mapping, it was painful. I would like to set it up once and just use it later on, not completely create from scratch. But issue type mapping sprints, they're global anyway, so why not do it? Also reusable. Admin's configuration, which will probably just create a per profile emails sent. Intuitive wizard, well, this is self-explanatory. I don't have to go deep into it. It needs a touch. Other ALM connections, this is fun because we're thinking about whatever. Like if you're having something else around aside of Jira or TFS and you would like to synchronize it or connect it to Jira or TFS, give us a note. We'll see what we can do. Pure cloud solution hosted by us. This is heavy task. I don't know how we're going to approach it. We need to see, first of all, if there is a need for this, how many people would love to use it. But this is a big task. This is a big task. REST API, this is something I voted up. This is final. So I have a big problems with I don't have to do anything manually. Whenever I can script something, I'm going to script it. And without REST API, it's hard for it. And unofficially, there is a REST API. You can access it, but it's not yet published. And we are thinking about having set up in stone some kind of REST API, which we can use for external sources. And most of the problems here would be actually solved because you can script them and forget about everything and never ever connect to the TFS anymore. So there is also an option of console version, which will never be accessible via external UI, and only API via terminal. That would be nice. Active Directory migration. This is a broad topic, not only about Active Directory, but generally all artifacts from one to another. Let's say, I know, projects, teams, groups, workflows, you name it. Yeah, even parts of automation probably not because they're completely different. But still, like I don't know. Many things are up to this discussion. And plugin support, we know that, okay, so how Jira is done right now. Jira is a core, is a platform to which there are multiple extensions. And we know for sure, we know that people, like, if you'd like to have some functionality, you're buying a plugin or using a plugin, and this is extending the platform functionality. TFS, on the other hand, is a complex solution, like complete, on the other hand. It has everything, building, repo, issue tracking, even broad perspective. So we are thinking if somebody would be interested in mapping or migrating from some plugins provided by Jira or used in Jira to TFS or the other way around. Yeah. And that's it. That's what we're thinking right now. Some things are already shipped because we were thinking about it in the past. We're publishing this roadmap, and it's going to be on the mail.
Yes, definitely. You get a link to this roadmap after the webinar, along with the recording and the presentation. I think that will happen tomorrow. And since we're almost out of time, and it's still no questions, I guess that we can wrap it up here. And just one more thing, if you, at any point in time, oh, hang on. Is there, no, okay. at any point in time, if you need our assistance, you can always reach out to us either via direct email, which you will have from me tomorrow, via our support, which again, I would like to stress how it's very responsive, or via live chat on our website, which you can find on Spartez.com. And I would like to thank you for your attention and hope to hear from you in the future.
If you have any question, always remember.
A question.
Oh, we have a question. Okay, so the question was more specific about who to talk to. So, okay, look, if you'd like to contact us, we can schedule a call for sure and explain a little more in depth about TFS4JIRA and its capabilities. We have it. Look, you can go to our website, Spartez.com. I can show you how it looks. I can later on show you how. I will show you how it looks. But okay, let me go to the website, Spartez.com, and share. On the bottom right side, you have here option to contact us. If you'd like, leave us a message, drop us an email, and we'll try to get in touch with you and schedule a meeting. On this meeting, probably we'll be able to resolve all your problems and walk you through the evaluation process.
Exactly. As Paweł showed, we are offline right now because being based in Europe, it's the evening, so the support team is away. But they will be sure to get back to you in the morning. So we
always have an email. We have an email, support@spartez.com. We are pretty responsive. Mail us out there, and we'll try our best to help you out. Seriously.
Okay. Once again, thank you for your attention, and bye-bye.